going to look at tonight. At least try out.
Yeah, I was playing around with something the last week or so. I thought it might make for a good topic. VS Code versus Visual Studio, right? Um, I've been a Visual Studio user for many years, and I love it. Right? Some people have some complaints, but about the performance. It takes a while to load. They fixed a lot of those things with the last upgrade, 64-bit and all that kind of stuff. So listen, I think it's a phenomenal product. On the flip side, there's a great product in VS Code, which is lightweight. I don't think it has all the features of Visual Studio, and I think that's a whole conversation there that we could have about, like, well, what's missing in VS Code, or what can't you do? But there's one problem that I have with Visual Studio, and that's actually the drawing me into this whole thing of, can I switch to VS Code full time or most full time? I'll tell you what the problem is, right? It's not anything that's necessarily like, is really that, it's not a bug or anything like that. Visual Studio, you need to be an admin to install it and to upgrade it. Okay.
Mm,
You
okay.
need to be an admin. You don't need to be an admin. And I could be somewhat wrong on some of these points, right? So if anybody knows that I'm wrong here, you do not need to be an admin to use Visual Studio. There used to be a time when, like, if you wanted to debug solutions and stuff like that, you needed to be like an admin user, right? You don't need to be, as far as I know, you don't need to be an admin to do all of those things, right? So I'm not an admin on my computer at work, right? We could have a debate about the value and the pros and cons of that, but that's not what this show's about, right? I understand the reason why we're not admin. There's some security concerns and stuff like that, right? And sure, I could, I could install Visual Studio with the support of our help desk, whatever, and they can upgrade it for me. But listen, the updates come out pretty often, and it's a little bit of a pain to bother those guys. And I did that. Listen, that might be a great workaround, but I thought, VS Code, right? And VS Code, I'm not really an expert in this area. I'm not an expert in many areas, right? But I'm not an expert in the understanding of this. But VS Code runs in the within the user profile. I don't know if you know that, Chris, right? But when you do VS Code, it used to be like an admin install, but I think it used to be, but they changed it. Like, by default, it installs in what's called user mode.
Yeah.
And one thing that's different about user mode versus like non-user mode is in Visual Studio, I believe if I install it on my computer and then you come and log into my computer, you've got Visual Studio, right? Because it's installed by like an admin, it's that kind of install. VS Code is in the user profile. So if I install it, you want to use my computer, you would have to reinstall it in your profile and things like that. So I think somehow it runs, the install is like protected and it doesn't have to reach into system things. Again, I don't really know, but you can run it as a user and it can upgrade as a user. VS Code updates all the time, updates itself all the time. And it's a great product. And it kind of got me thinking, and I'm not abandoning Visual Studio really, but it kind of got me thinking, like, hey, I've been using Visual Studio for, 20 years or whatever it is, right? Like, can I switch over to be a VS Code user more full time? I always use VS Code for certain things, editing certain individual files and stuff like that. But if I'm building a solution, I tend to go to Visual Studio. What about you? What do you do?
Well, so it depends.
And that was a
Um,
long intro by me, right? But hopefully that helped.
yeah. I would say that in the workplace, most of the time it's Visual Studio IDE. Some of that is because, you know, a lot of code bases that you go and work in are not brand new. They may have been, their file new project day may have been long before even Visual Studio Code's heyday.
Okay.
Or just that, you have a developer base at work that like knows how to use the product. And even, although sometimes I argue that we may not use all the capabilities of Visual Studio all that well, but they just know how to get around it. And so it's like, who wants to change? If you know how to get around it, you know how to get around it, right? So I remember tackling this issue when I was working somewhere where it was kind of my job to be like a .NET center of excellence. And so part of my job was to help the organization figure out like what's the right way to install this stuff. And I want to say that there you have to work with your IT group, which is what might be painful. Is I feel like there's a way that if the IT group sets up the Visual Studio install in some certain way over the network, that they can update it periodically for you. But then, you know, a lot of times if you don't know how to show them how to do that, it might be difficult to get that ball rolling. So I didn't really answer the question. There have been times.
You're right. I know there are ways to work around that install problem, but it kind of got me the whole thing is it was an impetus for me saying, oh, wait, maybe I could just use VS Code, you know.
I find myself at home almost intentionally switching around. If I think, I'll just give you an example. If I think we're going to work on something here on this show, I actually tend to reach for VS Code. And part of the reason is because that way somebody watching would, I think, feel like, oh, I could do what they did. Even if I go back and watch the replay and I pause it to catch up, I can do what they did. It's just downloads. I just got to download the product and get going. That's partially why. Another is because, and is I might say, well, let me go see if this project that I start here in my Windows developer machine, can I continue working on it in my Linux VM? You know, right. Can I take it over to Codespaces, which is a place I really like to be able to work from? If I've got this project in GitHub working well, then I know that from any machine I want, I can just fire up Codespaces and maybe demo it or work on it or something. But at the same time, so I say that, and it might make you feel like, well, that's what he always does. But sometimes I actually do say, you know, I'm going to fire this up in Visual Studio. Sometimes on some work projects that have been small, maybe I don't want to call them projects, but you know, you ever do kind of that little thing that you say, you know, I just want to try something out. I'm not expending, I don't know that this is going to ever end up as a thing, but let me spend a little bit of time trying something out. I might fire up Visual Studio Code, do a .NET new, go from there. But I hear you. You ask a good question. For your everyday work, are we at the point for you where you feel like you could walk in and get the value you need out of Visual Studio Code for your, I guess this is C#.NET development, right?
Right. And let me also add to this. If I can't, that's okay. Visual Studio, like even if I didn't have it at work, Visual Studio has a community edition, right? So there's nothing in this conversation that's like sort of negative about one or the other. It's just a simple, can I? Would it work, right? I think there are people that use VS Code, you know, 100%. I mean, the C# extension stuff is really cool there, and it works pretty well. So what do you think? Should we like open up VS Code and just like hack around a little bit and see where we get with it? So
I'd like to see what I'm specifically going to be interested in is where you say, hey, this is something that I value in Visual Studio IDE, and I'm getting this in Visual Studio Code. That'll be really interesting to me.
Yeah, sure. I agree with you on that. And there are definitely things that I like. Again, I've sort of been doing this as a bit of an experiment, and there are things that I miss, right? Question is, am I missing it because Visual Studio is better? And like I'm right in missing it, or am I just missing it because, oh God, I used it for 20 years, and if I never used it, would I not miss it? You know, kind of thing like that. I don't know. You want to share my screen? Let's
go
around with VS Code a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I'm just on my desktop right now. And I'm gonna, I'm just gonna VS Code, right? I'll open it up here. Um, and it opened up in some folder. This is from last week, as a matter of fact. Let's close that. So I always forget where close folder, right? Is that what I want to do? And I guess I'm at a new place and I never know where I am. So it's a terminal sometimes just helps me tell me where I am, right? Okay. Oh, right here. Yeah, I'm right back at my root. So I keep everything in a certain folder. So here's one of the other things that's kind of weird. I think we talked about this maybe on a previous show where I was saying like I want to change my root directory. I find myself like doing like CD source repo. Like this is where repos. Where's repos? Repos. There we go. And I find myself doing this and then like opening code here. And I think that's this, right? Code dot is kind of something that works, right?
Yep.
And then it's kind of weird because I just open code and I'm closing code. And maybe I don't even need to do that. Maybe I just not need to worry about reopening it. But if I have a project, we're going to build a new project, so it really doesn't matter, I guess, right? But anyway, so here's one of the things like right off the bat, right? And it's not too bad, but I want to create a new console application, right? And I'll admit I'm used to kind of going like file new, and it's going to walk me through I'm like, I don't know what I want. I'm going to scroll through some menu and get console application, right? And I don't always, and you can't do that here. At least I don't think you can. Now, maybe you can do it in the command palette. I don't know. But what I find myself doing is then I'll go like this. I know that it's .NET new, right? I know that. And I don't always remember, but I know I can do it. I think I can do this, and it's going to tell me like, or no, maybe it's help. Maybe it's -H. That didn't do anything for me.
If you want to see the templates, it's --list.
A --list. So, okay, or H, I think. Oh, okay. Right. So I find myself doing that. And then there's a list on here. Yeah. So L. So it's telling me to do .NET L. And I kind of know the answer to this one, right?
Right.
Oops. I got to do list, I think, because I didn't use the shorthand. No. .NET. I forgot the new. See, this is what I find myself, quite frankly, this is a good example. I find myself fumbling around. You're saying what? --list?
Yes, that should show you the templates, right?
Yeah, there it is. So again, I find myself fumbling around with this stuff. Now I actually know that I kind of know the one I want to do, which is console application, where it's actually kind of an easy one, right? And I think what I really want to do is do .NET new console-n, I think, for name, right? I'll call it like code demo or something like that, right? I think that's what you do. And sometimes I screw it up and then I just delete it because I screwed it up.
So I think I'm like even more lazy to where I will make the folder code demo and then I'll go in there because I think there's some way where, so that way it doesn't make the project here, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm interested to see you try it.
You're right, because if you forget to name it, it puts the project like right where you are, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you do like a CD, you do a M.
I think you can also do. I think you can also do like -O or something. And I mean, I suppose we can look at the .NET new help.
Hey, Statue's here. Hey, Statue.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out that don't forget the most important switch when you're creating .NET new. Don't forget, you got to get in there --language F#. I agree. I think that's the best tip we've gotten so far. So
Statue, always appreciate Statue and so you guys are saying like make dir, and I'll call it what I call it, code demo or something like that, right? So if I do that, I do CD code demo. Right?
You're not wrong about your -n, by the way. what -n does is if you don't specify a -n, then it just looks at the output folder and says, well, I guess that's probably what you want to call the project. But if you had a good reason to have the folder name be different from the project name, then you need -n.
But if you're in like your root and you do -n, it will create a folder inside the thing.
That's what -o does. -o is location to place the generated output. So you could theoretically.
I've done this before. Look, see, here we go, right? We're like into this show. We're learning stuff. We haven't really even, like Chris and I always say, like, is there enough to talk about here? Like,
well, I say just go into code demo and do a .NET new so we can see the default case, right?
Okay, sure. Well,
and then we'll come back and do the power case, because I hear you.
.NET new console.
Yeah,
and that's all I have to do then, because I don't need
technically all you. That's the minimum. Well, except for -- language F#. But if you want to keep it simple, we'll just no, we'll leave. I know we're leaving out a required switch as pointed out to us, but and I you know what, I actually hate that I might be sounding glib now, because I do love F# and can't wait to do some more shows on it. But by you doing that bare minimum, it created a console app and it put it right there in code demo. And because the folder was named code demo, they said, well, clearly you must want to call it code demo.
Right. So now, and if I look in my code demo folder, I can see that I've got a code demo CS proj file, right? But if I go here, I'm still not there yet. Now, I guess I can just do this open folder thing, right? And maybe that's an easier way to do it than what I often do is do code dot, and I open code at this place, and then I close the old version. And that just seems annoying. So where does this put me by default? See,
in an annoying spot.
Like super close.
And you know what's funny? I think that's adjustable. Let me see. I think I got tired of it getting put, like, I don't want to be there. I want to be in my source lives in C/source. So why don't you just start me there? And let me see, if I say open folder,
maybe it's a preference.
I think I've changed it.
Like root or something like that.
I know, like what's the setting?
Yeah, that's the tricky part, is there's so many things it could be. Start, maybe folder, I don't know. Path, who knows, right? I'll bet we could Google it, and like you said, it's probably in there. I don't know. And Statue saying, yeah, Statue, like you, I've littered so many directories by accident in doing this, right? Well, in the meantime, I'm going to just do this because I know where it is. It's probably up here in my shortcuts, like repos right there. And I can go to code, demo, and just select that folder. And then here I am. I'm in this folder, right? And so, okay, so I've got this console app with a program.cs. And everything kind of works. What's that? Signed into Visual Studio Live. Sure. Oh, look at that. And so, yeah. So I don't know if you found it yet or not, Chris, but so then as soon as I do this, I get this thing that you always get this required assets to build and debug are missing from code demo, add them. And I got to admit, I don't really know what this means. I always thought it was adding like the C# extension, but I already have the C# extension, right? So do you know what this actually is telling me? Like what is this going to do?
Yeah, I am pretty sure that is essentially running a .NET restore.
Oh, so you're saying to build, like, in other words, getting the yeah, maybe that's what it does.
But like I don't like that explanation, and there's a couple reasons why. Is I appreciate UI that generally speaking does not make you be some technical expert in order to understand the answer. But here's where I will pull back on that a little bit. We're working with C# and .NET. That dialogue coming up saying, would you like me to run .NET Restore for you, would probably make more sense to the audience using this than what you just read.
Yeah, and because of that, you notice I ran out of time early. I clicked the gear, and
Yeah.
can I get back to it? Oh, I can get back to it. Look at that. I didn't know that because I was thinking like, well, what if I lost it? Now what do I do? But the question is that the same as doing .NET Restore, right? Which is part of the build process anyway, right? So
Right.
I don't understand that because if I do build will restore anyway, NuGet packages, right? So not really
You
sure
could
why
just
I
say
keep
not
doing
now, right? And just ignore
it.
it.
Yeah, right. I don't know. And I always wonder like, well, what did I just do? Did I lose a tool, or something like that? Anyway,
Now, do you want to go back out and try using, I mean, this is up to you. Do you want to go
yeah,
back out and
no,
use
good for it.
command switches to have a little bit more control over your project location and name and stuff? That's up to you.
Yeah. So let me show you the way I normally do it, right? And I don't even
Okay.
have to go out. I can just go to the terminal and just do it anyway, right?
Yep.
So here I am in terminal, right? I'm going to go back to CD to repos, right? And what I thought I would do, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm going to screw up my whole directory here, is .NET new console -n, and I'm going to call it Andy code demo, just to give it a different
Yeah.
name, okay?
Right.
Now, what I think happens
Yeah. It did what you
is
wanted.
if,
It did exactly what you
yeah,
wanted.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so now what I usually do is do CD Andy demo, right? And again, same situation. I guess I could come up here and open the folder if I closed it, and I'd be in the same place, right? So that's
Yeah.
the way I usually do it. But it doesn't matter, right? We have multiple ways to do it. Um, and I don't know which one's better. Who the heck knows? Um, Usually I need a repo. And so usually if I'm really doing something, I'm going to go to GitHub. I'm going to create a repo. I'm going to clone that repo and I'm going to CD into the folder where I cloned my repo. And then I probably should just do .NET new console and leave it like that because I'm already in the place where I want it to be. But I don't know, right? So anyway, what I was wondering is, although I'm kind of wondering is, the command palette, which I always forget what it is. I guess it's Control Shift P, and I got to get better at this. Is there a way to do like .NET new in here, or like new or create? You know what I mean? I'm just wondering if you can get started right here with more of like a UI based thing, but I don't see it in here. Like how to run, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not giving me anything here. Console. What if it's like clear console? So I don't think so. I don't think you get that, right? So here's my thing, right? This isn't too hard to get over, this whole .NET new thing. But I'm used to being able to like right click and say new .NET application, new application or something like that, right? And it's a little harder. Statute says it's got to be an extension that'll do that if it's not baked in. Um, I think so. And I looked around for .NET extensions. I found a pretty good one. C# extension, sorry, not F#, I don't think, which we'll talk about a little bit, which is Roslinator, which I think is really cool. And maybe Roslinator works for F# too. But anyway, so here we are, right? Like we're in our app. We got as far as we wanted to do that. And I've got this program, right? Well, the next thing I was talking to Chris about this in advance. The next thing I always want to do is I want to right click somewhere and say like I want a new class, right? But you can't do that, right? At least not that I've found. So what I would do is I would go in here and say new file. I'm going to call it, first. I'll call it person. Why not? You always need a person class, right? Person.cs. And it's not that big a deal to say public class person. Oh, and look what I've got working here, by the way.
I mean, have you seen some of the stuff? So the audience obviously wouldn't know this, but we have a chat that we use, and some of the stuff that GitHub Copilot has authored for me has absolutely astounded me. And I threw it in our chat at times where I was actually writing documentation And I think, man, I wish I could find the exact example, but it absolutely astounded me when I started typing something like, um, I think I started typing something like for an example of how to do this, and it just started filling in, check the documentation, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How, how did you know?
It's pretty crazy, right? It's pretty crazy. So you know what? I'm going to accept this code here. So this is Copilot. This is GitHub Copilot
Yeah.
doing this for me, which maybe we should turn off for the sake of this demo. But let's just leave that in there because
Well, Copilot agrees with you. It's like everybody needs a name class with a name and an age. Like, come on.
Yeah, right. What else would I be putting in there, right? So now, so here we go. So what I'm looking for is help. Like I want my job to be easier, and immediately I've got the little light bulb telling me there's some stuff and there's some squiggles under here. Blue, which means it's not a problem, but there's something I could do, and yellow is more of a warning. But again, not necessarily a problem yet. And so I'm going to do this, and oh yeah, you know what? I didn't have a namespace, so I can do that. I'm going to tell it to give me a namespace, but it doesn't, infer the namespace, right? So again, in Visual Studio, if I said add class, it would figure out the namespace from the folder structure, right? Which some people might not like, but I guess I've grown accustomed to that. And so now I've got namespace, which isn't what I want, right? And so I don't know, right? And so I'm going to say, well, my namespace is going to be code demo, right? No, see now look what's happening, Chris. You see this?
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm going to hit escape, which I think will work. And I should have turned on my what's it called? That utility that let's do that just for kicks. Hang on a second. I'm going to light up my my utilities folder here. Let's see, where am I? Utilities. What's it called? It's called Karnak. Good old Karnak.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And now, if I do Karnak, there we go. That should work, right? So if I do something like this, oh, look at that. Will Karnak show me if I hit escape? No, it only shows me if I hit like control something, huh? So how about that? Didn't work. So I don't want it to give me that help. So I've got this namespace code demo. Now, look at that. I can also convert to file scope namespace. So I'm getting like the kind of help I want. I'll admit I like that, right? Now, but I'm not getting like tons and tons of help. Well, maybe I am. Let's see. Yeah, so the light bulb sometimes is in a spot where I wouldn't expect it, but I believe this light bulb is for the class, and it's just putting it not next to the class, but above the class. Like here, it's next to it. But in this case, it's above it. I don't know why. But I can do some stuff. I want to extract an interface. There's a lot of the things that like I tend to do that I really like, and I thought I would miss it without Visual Studio. For instance, now this is a person, but let's just say I have another class. I'm going to call it public class. Making something up here, right? So let's say I have a person data service. Let's get rid of that, right? And let's do public class person. Now I'm putting these all in the same file for now, right? But person repo, right? So let's create a person repo. And what is this going to tell me? Let's see. Wait, will it give me like a person repo? Come on, help me out. It's not helping me out. I was kind of hoping for some. Oh, what happened there? I got new. Let's see. I was kind of hoping to get some magic, like filling in some code, right? But let's just do like public. Oh, I got spaces in here. Hang on. Public. Oh, there we go. Okay, so pretend my repo does something here, okay? Which is really fine. So what I would like to do now is extract like an interface. I can do that here. So I got my person repo. Like, look at that. Those are the things you expect from like Visual Studio. Those kind of like refactorings, or if that's a refactor, or whatever it is, like a help. Right. So now here in my person class, I'm going to say I need keeps see, I find this a little annoying, Chris. Copilot, as cool as it is, and I know it's like in gray and I can just start typing and ignore it, but I do find it a little distracting. Maybe I'm just not used to it. I don't know about you. This isn't meant to be the complaining show, right? I'm just talking about like what's the
Yeah.
experience for switching over, because Copilot is awesome, but is it in the way? I don't know. But let's do private I person repository, right? I like that name, and it helped me with that. So it is giving me some help, and I can see from these squigglies, oh my gosh, there's all kinds of stuff going on here. But if I do this, okay, it's giving me some help here. Yeah, I'd like it to be read only, right? That's a pretty typical thing. And maybe that's all it's going to give me, right? So now that's cool, but oh, now let's see, generate constructor. See that? So now it's giving me, this is what I was hoping to do. It took a second for it to kick in. It wasn't there when I clicked this before, right? So I'm going to say generate the constructor, right? And like these are the refactorings that I use all the time in Visual Studio because I write a lot of code that looks like this, right? Chris, is that some, stuff that like this is stuff that I need. Like without that, this stuff gets to be really annoying, I find. You know?
The code
Now,
lens stuff or no?
yeah, well, not the code lens. I don't think
Okay.
that's code lens. I think it's just I think they're
Oh, okay.
refactorings is what they are, right?
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Is that yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Is and some of
Yeah.
those refactorings are sitting in sometimes people rely on things like ReSharper for that or just
Yes.
what's been built into Visual Studio now
Yes.
or
If I add another one of these things in person repository second, right? Whatever it is, right? So to me, it's pretty cool that I can come in here and tell it to initialize the field from the console. Like there it is. Like I do this all day and day out, or day in and day out. And if it didn't have that, this would be like this would be just painful to me. So um so I got this thing. Um and so okay, so now I want to build this thing. I want to run this project, right? Now, one of the I know how to build this thing, and there's a couple ways you can do this, right? Well, one way is with the command. I'm going to type it up here just for sake, right? Is to do .NET build, right?
yeah,
Um,
right.
at the command line. Now, what ends up happening, and this is the kind of thing that I find like sometimes it works great for me. I come down here, right? I say .NET net build. And this isn't going to work really well because I'm not in the place where I want to be, right? And I find that this is another one of those things that like I'm getting better at it, but I have to manage like where I am if I want to run a command like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if I do .NET build, I don't know. It might try to build some other stuff because there is code in this repos folder, right? But let's just say I want to I want to do that. I want to go to CD code demo, right? Then I could do .NET build. Okay. And I think this is going to compile fine, right? Um, and now, interestingly, I guess it's because the way I have it zoomed, I can't really see the output. I've got a warning, which is okay, but I do have a warning. But it compiled, right? Now, if I do one of my favorite shortcuts is Control Shift B, right? But this is interesting because it's like there's not really a task, and there's a bunch of kind of stuff around here that is a little um, like takes a little getting used to. But you can configure a build task, right?
Right.
And look at that. So and now it's helping me. Like it's pretty impressive. Like the way this is going to help me. So, okay, well, I told it to build. It doesn't know how to build. So now it's giving me this tip. Create a task.json file from template. Yeah, I'd like you to do that. MS build executes. .NET Core executes. I don't know. I think I want .NET Core, right?
I think so.
Let's try that. I think that's what I wanted, although it wasn't the first one. So now I've got this tasks.json. And interestingly, don't you usually get like a startup.json? Maybe if I built, I would get a startup or something, not startup, but there's another one, right?
You're talking about like launch.json?
Launch.json. Yeah. When does that get created? Maybe when I build. I don't know. Or maybe when I oh, I know when it happens. All right, let's pretend. So, okay, so it created this thing.
Well, so here's the thing, okay? You've created build tasks that are now going to respond to that Control-Shift-B. That's tasks.json.
Yes, exactly.
If we went to the debug section, it's going to try to help you make a launch.json. Yeah.
No, I realized that afterwards. Yeah, I realized that afterwards. So now, if I do Control-Shift-B, let's see what happens. Well, look down here. Building.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's just, did it actually do something down here? Let's do like, am I clear? Yeah, so okay, let's just do that again, right? Let's see if there's anything happening there's nothing happening down here, right? Under output. Just wondering, like, where do I see that? I don't know. How do I know that worked correctly?
You know,
like
I'm kind of weak. Build?
What's that?
You mean like output for the build? When you were back at the terminal. No, you were right.
I usually just like these different tabs here. This is it here, I think, right?
Yeah.
If I do that again, and this might seem like amateur hour. See this thing spinning here? Task is running, and it checked.
It kind of looks like they made a second little terminal to run it in.
I think they did, because if you come over here, you have this terminal will be reused by tasks, right? So it's going to keep that open for me. So one thing we can do is we can say, I didn't mean to type ASSS. That was just me. Let's just do something like that. Okay, so this won't build, right? Now if I do Control-Shift-B, will I get an X over here? Yeah, that's pretty handy. I gotta say, I wasn't really, I hadn't been used to that. I think that I could get used to that, but that's pretty cool, right? And I do like that I can click on this, Control click, and well, it's going to take me to something, but here it is. Okay, there's. It's probably so confused because of this really nonsensical thing there, but okay, so I got that, and it builds, right? So this is pretty cool, and I got a warning here that it doesn't like the nullable property name. And I tell you something, and this is not a VS Code thing, but using the default settings for the nullable stuff introduces a lot of interesting things. And I kind of like the new nullable stuff. I like the safety of it.
Yeah.
But I built a project the other day, and without me going in and making a whole bunch of changes, I had like 90 warnings, all about nullable stuff that I had to go in and change because I wasn't really paying attention to. I wanted to just code through it and see what would happen at the end, So like this kind of stuff, like it does not like the fact that name is a string, and it could be null. And I'm kind of used to like, well, it's, yeah, right, it can be null. It's a string. You got a problem with that, Chris? I don't know. It's a name. Name's a string. Maybe it'll be null. But it says non-nullable property name. So because I've got this strict stuff on, I hadn't said make it nullable, right?
Right. Or that it can be. Yeah, right. Yep.
Right. And now it's still unhappy, which is interesting. I don't know why it's really unhappy about that. Well, now it's non-nullable and it might end up being null, and I don't have a constructor that's sort of protecting it, right? But sometimes that's okay, right? Like, I don't know why that's such like, I think I could see why that could be a problem. But
Well, I mean,
I think
it just depends on if you look, if you turn on the Nullable References feature, you're saying that you want the compiler to prevent you from letting anything be null unless you explicitly call it out. Like, that's a choice that you made, right? So now you this becomes a warning, and there are many developers, and I have actually tried this at times, who will turn on warnings as errors. So then, you know, so I mean, it's funny that I say you have opted in to being more explicit about objects that have to be null, including strings, which, you know, have like you're saying, Andy, like strings in .NET have a long history of being nullable, and possibly that might be a valid state for many applications, but you got to either go turn that feature off in the CS proj, or say, nope, I'm going to tell the compiler that it is okay for name in this particular place for name to be nullable.
Yeah. So T Wahoo's in the chat. Hello, T Wahoo, and thanks for joining us again this week. T Wahoo says, nullable context is annoying at first, but once you see the bugs it prevents, wow, so nice. And I couldn't agree more. But it really takes, I'm sort of, making the point here of like how weird it is. And Chris, you said I opted in for it, right? But I'm like,
kind of.
I don't remember opting in. But
you opted in by using .NET 6.
Right. Now, I think if I want to allow it, I've seen somewhere that there's an exclamation, but maybe this isn't the place
I think you're right about the question mark. I just don't know that it's going to pick it. Like, try rebuilding and let's see if the squiggly goes away.
What, with the question mark like that?
Yeah. Okay. It's still complaining though. I wonder what the different complaint is.
No, wait.
No, it went away.
I'm surprised it took that long. And so I think that's another thing that I noticed that in the past, in the project I had, which was bigger, sometimes little squiggles and stuff didn't go away. And I don't know why that is, right? Maybe it's, like you said, maybe you just have to do the build. So I like this, T-Wow. I'm with you. I feel like this is very clear. And I can be, but I don't know, but it's interesting, right? Because you could argue that leaving it like this, like, well, again, because you're saying I turned on, I have opted into the nullable stuff, right? But it's not an error. It's just a warning. I can still build it. I can still ship it like this. Let's just say consider building it as nullable. All right. So anyway, so I like that there's all kinds of help in VS Code for these kind of things, and these refactorings and these ideas and stuff like, look, convert to full property, like there's a lot going on here. And then, we want to run this thing. It is a console app, and I didn't change any code that actually does anything, but there's a program that's going to say hello world, right? So in this case, really, I can do a lot of things, but the one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just hit F5, right? Because in Visual Studio, I'm used to F5. Wait. Before we move on, hang on. T-Wahoo's throwing out some stuff, right? And I've seen these solutions before. There's stuff we could talk about without the question mark. And you can always do like
right. You can assign it to string.empty, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can't assign it to null because you said that this was non-nullable. So you could just right here, you could assign it to string.empty.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a different string.empty.
Yep.
And of course, you notice I get all the IntelliSense that I won't forget about.
And I love how Copilot's like, hey,
Copilot.
this is probably what you want, right?
Right. But even without Copilot, I can get string dot, e empty, right? It helps me with those kind of things. Copilot, there's like a couple of things happening at once that are helping me. And I just want to point out to people, some of it is Copilot, some of it is IntelliSense, or maybe it's not called that in VS Code. I don't know. But yeah, right. So now I've protected this value by making it an actual string and set it to empty by default, right? An empty string. Tiwahu posted a great link in here. I've seen this link myself. I'll pop that open because I know this link. Where is it going on my computer? Did I put it here? Yeah, so this is actually pretty good. I was looking at a lot of that this week on some of these explanations that are in here. I agree that I think it's really helpful, but I think it's hard for developers that have been doing this stuff a while, Chris. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, and it's interesting because this can really start debates, and I don't want to start a debate. So I respect that folks might just be like, hey, there's too much going on here. But for example, you could make the argument here that, okay, what does a string mean in this application? What does it mean for that name to be empty? Like is that okay? Do you prefer null to mean that we don't know why we don't have it? And so here's what I think might be said. Like what does it mean for a first name to be empty in this application? What does it mean in terms of the business rule, right? Because I think what nullable references is at least forcing in some respect is it's making you confront that a little bit earlier instead of just, well, what does name null mean? What does it mean? Does it mean that, because I will submit to you, Andy, that it could mean a lot of things. It could be that, wait a second, how can it ever be null? Our application was supposed to make sure it got the name from the database, from the form, from the whatever. Maybe in your business domain, that is a problem. But you could also say, as a team and as a company and as an org, like, no, what null means is we don't have it. And that's not, I'm not going to say that that's wrong, but what I might submit to you is maybe if that's what the business rule is going to be, that first name of null means that we don't have it, that perhaps you might want to write a little code so that the person class expresses that more clearly. It wouldn't be public string, it would be public name, and then you would have a name class that manages all of that for you, and it makes sure that it not only can't be null, but if you don't have it, that name class would somehow tell you with some kind of value the reason why it's empty. And that sounds like a lot of code. And so I can understand the counter argument of like, well, now I got to write all this code for something that was so simple. Well, was it simple? I mean, I don't know.
Right. I was thinking as you were talking, and I was listening, and I was thinking, well, let's look at some different options here, right? There's first name equals string empty. There's last name that I made null, and there's name, right? And in this case, there's also, I didn't think you could do null forgiving operator in this situation, but what I really wanted to do is
that's in a method that takes it. You need a method that
takes it. What I was looking to find is the way to do it where it'll say consider setting a non-null value and exiting the constructor. So another way to do it is to say, I don't need this here. I don't know where I put that. Name equals
right.
Yeah. So now I've sort of satisfied that one, and I've got no more warnings. It's kind of smart enough to look at that and go, well, okay, yeah, you took care of that. This is kind of a stupid example, honestly, but like why would I probably would do this a different way, like inline or something. I don't know if I would write this, but okay, look at the different ways to solve this. But yeah, it's pretty it's asking us to be pretty explicit because I've turned on. You're right. I've opted in for that whole thing, right? In this case, now name can be null. I could make it null again. Like, well, no. See, what can I do? Can I assign that to null? No, because it's not nullable. So can I? I mean, this is not what I was planning on talking about, if I'm being honest
That's
here,
okay.
right?
That's fine.
But yeah, but if I'm in this, I don't know, this constructor up here, and I say person. Okay, great. And I can do p dot name.
You accidentally hit 2 equal signs instead of calling it person.
Oh, look
P.
at that. Yeah, I don't know how I did that, but thanks. That's weird. Right. Why doesn't it like this?
Just make it person P.
Oh no, I forget. Hey, oh, that's what it was. I think somehow when I hit the double equals, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So
and I know what it's gonna suggest to you on line 12, but let's keep going.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just saying like in this, yeah, it's going to give me suggestions to take away and use the new keyword, right? I kind of like this.
It's going to say, why don't you use a target type? I think that's the official name of it, a target typed. Oh man, I can't remember what it's called.
The new expression can be simplified, is all it tells you, right? You know, the other, and I get two different things depending on which one of these things I click on. Watch this. If I hover over new, it's going to try to tell me to use an object initializer.
Right.
See?
Yep.
Object initialization could be simplified. Either way, there's a lot of stuff happening in there. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do. But in this case, these are blue, which means I can ignore them if I want. Right? Like it doesn't matter.
Right. Those are suggestions.
This one's yellow.
That's a warning.
That's a warning. But if I do this, let's try something different. And again, this is not exactly what I was thinking about doing, but if I do last name equals null, it doesn't care.
Nullable, right?
That's because I explicitly said,
yeah,
last name is nullable, right?
Yep.
So, you know, we're sort of breaking like C# where everything is nullable because I've turned on that like explicit, like whatever you called it before, and it's kind of weird.
It's funny because cool. And you know, I remember a long time ago when the name of the feature was going to be called Nullable References, that I remember that tweet. I can't, you know, and I'm going to feel bad because I don't remember who it was to. It might have even been Damian Edwards, where I think I said, man, I don't know if I like this name Nullable References because the name Nullable References makes it sound like you're enabling the ability to null references, but what you're really doing, in my opinion, is you're requiring people to be much more explicit about their use of null. Like you have to actually tell the code that you intend for it to be okay. And his response to me was like, well, naming is hard. I wish I could find the tweets.
I remember those conversations. You know, some people jokingly said, well, we should call it strict mode or something like that, you know, which brings back other memories.
Strict. Could you imagine strict?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
how about option explicit? We should call it option explicit. That's what we should do.
That'd be great. So Tiwahu is pointing out some other stuff, right? We were talking about this. Like we also have some other options. We could say person P equals new person. I could say person P2 equals new person. I'm going to leave this and let the refactorings do their thing, right? And I'm going to do person P3. And this is not Visual Studio Code. This is sort of .NET 6, I guess, really.
There's a little OmniSharp, I think, doing this for you, right?
Well, OmniSharp is helping us, but I mean, the options for the language, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. So what I can do is I can use the new keyword, which is the new, it's not a new keyword because we've always had new, but it's sort of implicit that if I've declared this P2 as a person, I can use the shorthand and just say new, right? Another thing I could do is I could come down here, the discard, that's a whole other thing, right? But I could use the implicitly typed var, right? And I don't think there's some reasons why you might need to use var. I don't want to get into that. But in this case, I don't know if it matters, and I'm curious to know which you guys prefer. I have my thoughts, but I'm curious to know which you guys prefer.
Yeah, so obviously line 12 was day one .NET 1.0, right?
Yep.
And line 14, actually,
Yeah.
I want to say line 14 has been around a long time, where it's basically inferring the type with the var
Yeah.
keyword. I think it's been around since the dawn of LINQ, because if
Yep.
I
You see what I
remember,
put in there?
yeah, not .NET 3.0. I think you're right. I think you're right. Um,
I know this because Link came out in 3.5, and Link was made possible by the improvements they put in
yes,
.NET 3. And I don't usually know these things that specifically, but I did a lot of talks in those days on
yeah,
Link and all these things. And var is one of those enhancements in .NET 3 that made Link
yeah.
possible in
The
3.5. But
the
anyway, that's,
the
you know,
language needed type inference in order to do LINQ, because LINQ did a lot of like, from this select that, and
yeah,
you, so
yeah.
you weren't declaring what your final. So var came from that. But so then in line 13 came out, I want to say in C
This
sharp
is, yeah.
9, and it's called target typed new expressions. I wanted to go look up the name, because as we've been
Oh, is
sort
that
of
accurate? You're
teasing,
sure it's 9? Okay, cool.
I'm fairly certain now.
Yeah,
Um,
cool. I'll leave it that way. Yeah.
it's we like to make fun of naming. I'm sure it's very difficult to come up with what you're going to call this feature, and it's called target typed new expressions. And
Yeah.
what bothers me about the name is, how would you ever figure out what it does from me telling you the name? Um, but
Right.
whatever. The feature is, do not require type specification for constructors when the type is known. And so
Right.
clearly the compiler can figure out that what you mean here is a person. What do I like? So I will
Hang
tell
on,
you.
I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna add some other code in here to help this. I'm gonna just say public person uh, get.
We did get a comment. Naming is hard. Get good at renaming, because of all the complaining that I've been doing about how difficult it is to come up with good names for things. But putting that aside, Tawahu also pointed out that they went what I might call like hard mode. They turned on nullable references and then turned on treat warnings as errors. So they took it. They said, like, we're serious about this. We're going to be explicit about our handling of nulls. And so the question is what do you like? When var came out, I adopted it personally, and I used it, and I liked it, and there were several things I liked about it. There were several things I liked. One was that I found I didn't have to go back and change calling code if I decided to change an object later. I liked that.
Absolutely.
The
Right.
second thing that I liked was, sometimes especially when you're using LINQ, and the result of a LINQ expression, the LINQ expression is good. You did like a select and a where and an any and a first, and who knows? The LINQ expression is right, but heaven help you if what type is being produced by the combination of selects and wheres and sums and aggregates and whatever. And so you say, man, I don't know what it is. var. Thank you, compiler, for figuring
Yeah,
out
like
that it's an
half
I
the,
enumerable of x of y of z.
yeah. But
Yeah,
here's the thing. So now we have these options, right? And as I look at these two, right? First of all, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing the first one on
right.
line 12,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yep.
I think some of us just like to type less and certain things, right? And certain things, there are some reasons behind other things, right? But one thing I like about line 14 is that I've typed less, but I don't have to read far to find out what it is. In other words, it's right there. There's a person. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I can look at that. And this one, if I'm just kind of looking here, right? Like let's say I have my screen. I mean, obviously I don't. But yeah, look, okay, look, this is great. I don't know if I can even, I made it so big, but like how lines run over the screen
Yeah,
sometimes,
right.
right? And
Sure.
so not that this is likely to happen in this case. Look, I can't even go that far. But my point is, like, if this is all the screen real estate I have, well, what's var p3? I don't know, but person, I can tell P2 is a person. I know
Yeah.
these are extreme cases, but there's
Right.
something about the semantics, or if that's, I don't know what the right word is, but um, where I like the fact that it's upfront a little bit. I don't know. I don't.
So there was a third reason that I liked var. I will admit this is the least strong reason, and it was that if I use var everywhere, then somebody coming along getting a line 15, we know what var is. We know it's a person because that is the easiest type inference in the world. But what if var p3 is equals the result of some expression, calling a method?
I had it right here, right?
Yeah, that's easy. We know, right? Get something.
Because no, I purposely didn't call it get person.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So what I kind of liked about var was that it kind of made me say, listen, if I'm not going to get information about what P3 is from the type declaration, then my code had better tell me. So I'd better not call that method get. I'd better call it get person, or the variable. Yeah. But listen, I admit that it is the least strong of the reasons. But because all it takes is for right.
Tiwahoo shares a great tip that I noticed that a lot of people don't know this. Okay, a lot of people do not realize, because what everyone tries to do is they try to hover over like P3,
right?
And like that's not really telling me. Well, it does say person. Actually, it does say it there too. Person is nullable, but I tend to go over the var because var is really what it is. It's a code demo.person.dataservice.person, and you can hover over these. It's surprising that people don't know that. Really, honestly. Now, listen, we got into this sidetrack, honestly, a little of a sidetrack, but
right. Yep.
I want to run this thing. Tiwa was pointing out all kinds of good stuff. F12 will take you to the type, and that is true. I can click on these things. I can hit F12. I tend to not use F12. I tend to right click and say, go to implementation or something like that. I tend to be a right clicker more than an F12.
Yeah.
But I learned a new thing the other day, and I'm going to share this with you because I was talking to a coworker. Oh, this thing just doesn't get any smaller. I'm really kind of big here. Hang on, let me make this a little smaller again. So I was talking to a coworker of mine and saying that what I really missed in VS Code. Wait, hang on. Why is this giving me a squiggly down here?
Well, hover over it. Let's see what it tells you. You're missing, so we must be a little light.
Yeah, what I did, I'm going to undo because I don't know. Yeah, whatever it is, I'm missing one. Let's just add it back in here. Okay. One of my like go-to muscle memory things is Control R, Control R.
Right.
Control RR, I believe is what it is. And maybe that's from ReSharper even. I don't know. I've been doing it so long, which is like to rename something, right? Like if I want to rename this first name and have it renamed throughout the solution, whatever. Control R, I think it's Control RR, right? And my coworker said, and they said, well, yeah, they go, I don't use that. I always used F2 in Visual Studio to rename something. I said, I didn't know that. And it turns out, though, that even though my shortcut doesn't work, F2 works. So there's some things are par for Visual Studio, like some of these things like F12, which Tiwahoo pointed out, F12, F2, those things work. So I can easily rename this thing first name change, something like that, right? And that will change it all around here. But okay, so anyway, before Tiwahoo points out another great tip, and by the way, Tiwahoo, I'm not picking on you, you can point out great. Let's say I want to run this thing, right? Because again, Tiwahoo, I don't know if you were here in the beginning, but the concept was, could we not use Visual Studio, right? Like how is it and how hard is it to switch over for a person like myself who's been using it for like 20 years, or whatever. So So the go-to thing in Visual Studio is F5. I want to run this thing. I want to debug it, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to hit F5. And that will still work here. But I think, Chris, as we talked about earlier, we're going to get a little bit of a problem when I hit F5. Am I right?
I think it's going to complain that you don't have a launch.json, but let's find out.
Yeah, that's what we think, right? But so I'm going to hit it. And
Okay.
well, so it's telling me to select the environment. And I think that's because it doesn't know.
Yeah.
So interestingly, .NET 5 Plus, it doesn't care what version, as long as I'm above .NET 5. And I'll say that's true. And it looks like I didn't see it add anything up here. Wait, yeah, it didn't add anything. Is it
I don't
running?
feel like it built anything either.
I don't think it did either, but maybe I have to hit it again now. That is odd.
Yeah, that's weird.
Let's try something else here real quick. Let's do a build and make sure that the build works. And again, I love that I can do Control-Shift-B because that's just something I've been doing for a long time. I got, I think, warnings. Oh, build task is warning. So I think that's okay. It doesn't like that nullable thing, but let's just fix that just so no one gets worried that that's not working. Okay. That was the other one that didn't like. I don't know what I got here, but okay. Build. And it's happy now. So I got my check mark. So again, I'm going to hit F5, and I have other ways of doing this. So let's just see why it's just not working for some reason.
Yeah, you're right.
But the other thing to do is over here on this run menu, I guess is what I call it, the run thing. So if I do run and debug, see, it's kind of coming back to that same spot. It's not building that file for me.
Oh, I wonder, you see where it says generate C# assets for build and debug? Let's go ahead and click that. And I wonder if this was part of what it was going to do.
In the beginning?
Sure, let's say yes. Why not?
Maybe that was what it does in the beginning, but we could find out because we could create another project. This is what I was expecting it to do, right? To take me to this thing.
Yeah.
And
it didn't actually launch it.
No, it didn't launch it yet, but that's okay. If I come back over here, this is what we were both expecting, right? This launch.json file.
Yep.
Which I will tell you, I like this stuff because it's pretty explicit, right? Like, I can't, like, I can't hide from the fact that, like, I don't know what this stuff is, or maybe that's not the right thing. In the older .NET world, prior to .NET Core, I guess, I don't know how it launched. It just did, right? Maybe there was a project settings folder or something like that. I feel like this is a little bit more bare metal-ish, and maybe that's not the right term to use, but like, wow, here's what it's doing, right? And so I've got these configurations, and there's a launch. This is name. Like, this is the command I guess I'm executing when I go to this thing, right? .NET Core launch console. And what is it doing? Like, it tells me explicitly what's happening. Oh, look, a pre-launch task build. Well, we added that one before, right? So everything here is kind of like very explicit.
You know what it is that we look, I'll just be straightforward. We were spoiled, right? Since the dawn of .NET, File New Project in Visual Studio crafted all of this stuff for you, and it put it into a project file, and it was furthermore a project file that was very difficult to read because the old CS proj was very difficult to read. It had lots of GUIDs, and so you just ignored it. And then second, if you needed differences between your debug and your release, the configuration stuff in Visual Studio just handled that. And what you would really learn to do was you would learn, if you had to, you would learn to navigate that interface to check a box here and uncheck a box there. But you didn't know where that stuff was being stored. In fact, I don't know if anybody really knew. It was definitely a dark art where what's happening here is, because Visual Studio Code is just an editor, is it's saying, hey, you want me to launch and attach something? you got to tell me what to do. And you're basically, you're telling it, you're saying that the program being launched is in this place. And here are the arguments that I want you to pass, because you can do that in Visual Studio. Have you ever done that where you've put command line arguments into the project settings? I mean, I have. Maybe you haven't.
Now that you mention it, yes, I have.
Yeah. And
Right. So wait, so you bring up an interesting point here. Wait,
Yeah.
let me stop you for a second and bring up an interesting point, because I might have explained this or thought about this wrong. I mean, I knew it right, but I still think I tricked my brain here a little bit in thinking that this is, you know, which features are like .NET or .NET Core, if you want to call it that, or .NET 5, 6, you know, and what is VS Code? And so it's interesting because this file is in a folder called VS Code, right? You don't need this file. If you're running in Visual Studio, you don't need this file. And I guess like what you're saying is, I don't know where it puts those things, but
in the old days,
I forget like how it works.
In the old days, it used to be in SLN files and CS Proj files, but times are changing.
Yeah, but I'm saying, what if I created a .NET 6 in Visual
that's
Studio?
a good question, because nowadays Visual Studio is making in .NET 6 and maybe even 5, and I'm not sure how much earlier, there is a .vs folder being created now. And I haven't really stopped to look at what's in there. I think editor config is in there.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But I don't, I mean, while you're working here, I might fire one up just for comparison.
You check that. That's a great idea. So anyway, the point is, now we've got this launch.json. We're telling it explicitly what to do, right? And now, if I do this, I can come over here in my run, and I can hit the arrow, or I should be able to hit F5, either way. And look, it launched up here, and I've got this little debug menu. And I don't even have a breakpoint set in here, so it's not going to be super exciting, but somewhere along the line, it actually is just, well, this is the debug console, right? What else do I got here? Output. Where is my, I guess you don't get like a new window, like a new console. Maybe you just get the debug console. I thought I would get like a new console window here.
I don't know that you do for a console app.
Yeah, and I don't need one, right? So okay, now, and I let this run. Oh, I know why. It's gone already, probably. Hang on a second. I didn't make a breakpoint. It could be gone already. I wasn't paying that much attention, but if I put a breakpoint, and look how, same thing, if I want a breakpoint, I just put that in there. I'm going to, again, now this, I'll do F5 again, and yeah, this is it. This is my console, the debug console. It hasn't written hello world yet, so I can hit my breakpoints. Now, some things about breakpoints are a little different here. For instance, what I don't think I could do, and I don't have enough stuff in here. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna change this for a sec. Give me 1 sec. I'm gonna make a change to this application. So interestingly, you know, program. This is the whole file right here. It's just console write line. Right? There's nothing else going on here. It's using, I guess, it's using the what's the word I'm looking for? Like, there's no you know, public void main. It's using that like default stuff, right? What's it called? Top level statements.
Top level statements, right? Yeah.
Top level statements, right? Like this is just, it automatically uses this without a class being here. But let's say I want to put in here var. I'll just be explicit here and say int I equals 0. Okay. So I'm going to run this now. And part of the reason I'm doing this is because maybe I'm wrong about some of these things, but there's a few things that I kind of miss about doing this. One thing is I want to change the value of I, right? Now, can I? Oh, maybe I can. No, see, in Visual Studio, I could get to it pretty easily, I think, by like hovering over it and getting that little window there that was called, I forget, you know, there's like a window there, right? But I can't just change it really easily. Now, there are ways to change it, right? I can come down here and I think I have to say something like $I equals 10, something like that. No, maybe it's not $I. I don't think it's I equals 10. What is it? You have to say something else, but maybe I'm just totally mixing that up. Oh, no, that's all I had to do is just I equals 10, right? I was looking at, right, that was a sample I was looking at from a different language. I remember that from the other day, it just stuck in my head. So I can do that. I can say I equals 10, and I do have the watch window here, and I can put I in the watch window, right? But another thing you couldn't do, like I think in Visual Studio, like you can right click, you can copy this stuff out of like here. I don't think that worked. I tried to do control line, copy line, and it's empty, right? So just for kicks, Notepad, and I paste into Notepad. Yeah, so I did not get like the value of I, right? The only way to copy the value of I is to come over here and do copy value. I don't even know if I can do like, yeah, I can't like control C it, right? I have to right click and do copy value. There's a few things there that felt a little like, like I can do what I need to do, but I think it was a little like maybe awkward is the right word compared to what I'm used to. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, you're accustomed to just being able to go there, hit Control C, paste it somewhere else. Maybe paste it to Notepad or something to look at.
Right click on it and get I can't think of what it's called. It's not a watch window, but in Visual Studio, you can sort of like hover over it.
And you can say like add to watch window or add to immediate, or
you could do that. That's another thing you could do, right? And I don't think you could hover over it and do like any of those things, but you can come down to the watch window and add it, right? Like another thing I couldn't figure out how to do is I like to be able to like drag my there's a name for this thing, the caret or something like that, like where I am in my position, like drag it up a line to re-execute a line. Do you ever do that when you're debugging?
So you set next statement by moving that caret around, and I don't know if that's what it's called, but I can't say I can't say that I've done that. It doesn't mean that I haven't set next statement, but I've always been like crazy explicit about it, where I'll right click on the line and say set next statement that way. It's probably that you've just taught me something that I've never tried, like dragging the thing down.
Oh yeah, yeah, I love doing that. But I don't know that there's a way to do that here. And that is something that I find pretty helpful. And again, I don't want to make this the complaining show. I'm just simply saying, like, are these things possible? Like, I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But if you're switching over to these are the things that I think a lot of developers might find I don't know, uncomfortable or something like that, if that's the right word. But again, there's something about Visual Studio Code that I really like. It's not that I don't like it. I like this thing. I like the flexibility. I love the fact the amount of stuff that's in here, considering at its root, this is just a text editor. You know what I mean? The extension model is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. You couldn't do this when it first came out. There's no way to do these things, right? So I edited that. Now, Tiwahoo was saying they're used to just going right to the, I think, to the command line. And, you could do .NET run. Now, I don't know how to debug from there, but you could do .NET run. I believe will work.
Yeah, yeah, that'll work.
And and it shows it right there in line, right? Because it's the same command line. Now, if I wanted to do, can I do? Is there like to debug?
Well,
or is that like an extension that you need the extension to?
Well, no. If you had an app that was in the process of running, one of the options up there is to attach. So it would be just like in Visual Studio, if you had an app running and then you attach to process, you can do that. You can do that.
Yeah, but how am I going to get this thing running when it's a console app and it's gone? That's what I mean. By the time...
There'd have to be a lot more going on, right? Like,
it'd
have to be a WinForms app or something.
Right. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because F5 gets me there. Like I'm not missing that at all. I was just pointing it out. It's like, how do you do that? But I really do like the debugging experience in here and how easy it is to debug, right? So one of the things I think that comes along with it, again, we're not building anything complex here, but we want to add up NuGet packages, right? We always need to add NuGet packages, right? So I know how to add NuGet packages. There's a few ways to do it, but again, this is one of those things that like I find I'd like to get better at because I'd like to start using VS Code more, and I'd like to figure out what the best way to do this is. I know one thing to do is to do .NET add package, right? And then the name of the package, like what's a good package to add? And this is the thing, right? So where's my view and search for packages in here? So one thing I could do, I guess, what I was thinking is, well, is it so bad to just go to NuGet.org and get the name of the package I want to get? Like, maybe that's the way to do it, right? So if I'm looking for, good old Newtonsoft.json, I guess I could just come here and do that, right?
Yeah.
And Newtonsoft.json. Okay. So why don't we just come over here and say Newtonsoft.json, right? And I could do that. That's going to work, right? I think it worked. A lot of stuff happening in here, but I think it's an edit file, so I think it's here. And if we go down to here, we'll should see it in there. Okay, good. So I got that reference, right? I think there's also a way to do it right in here.
You can.
Even
if
has
you just
like
want to type right there, you can.
Yeah. So what's the way to do that? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, like copy and paste that line, and we'll just have to pick a different package.
Yeah, right. But isn't there a way to get like IntelliSense in here? Does it do that automatically?
You might. Like if you back it up.
That's doing it because I had it above hand, right? I don't think that's it. There's a way. There might be an extension that you need. But I remember seeing demos where you could type it and it would give you help. What do you do? Like, what do you guys do when you're in VS Code and you want to add extensions? Like, do you do what I did, which is like just go search for it?
If you want to add a package,
Yeah.
I would say that most likely, if I don't know the package name, I probably do what you did and head over to NuGet.org in order to get it.
Right.
And whether or not I use .NET package add or whether it kind of depends. Like I probably open the CS proj, and if I see a line there, I'll probably cut and paste and be like, okay, now let me just go, but
yeah,
it's tricky because at least if I do the .NET package add, I get the latest version essentially without thinking, without typing. I just get the latest,
Now, one thing we haven't talked about extensions, but I think, see, this is the one that might be, I have this is the NuGet package manager. Oh, I know what this is for. Okay. I added this extension and I kind of forgot about it, but I think that I can do up here, NuGet add package. Okay. Now, does this give me, or search? So let's say I want to do like JSON. Look at that. Cool. So this is a really good experience. I forgot I added this the other day in trying to figure it out. So if I wanted to add something for like entity, something like that, framework, what does that do? Doesn't like that. Search. Oh no, it tried to do that package that I see that was a little tricky because I was on that line when I hit enter. But this is pretty good. This is pretty close, right? Like, of course, it's funny how I can't think of like
you said entity framework, right? And it didn't work.
Yeah. What if I do like EF and search EF core? don't know what this Z stuff is. Like, it's not quite the same. Like in Visual Studio in the NuGet package manager, I can see the description and I can link to everything directly from there. It'd be nice if there was a way to not just add the package, but like take me to the page. Oh, now I lost my caret here, right? I think I need to do this. NuGet, or is it just confused because I'm in here? Yeah, I think I'm like, I need to like reset that somehow. I don't know how to do that. But so what else is there for NuGet? NuGet package man. No, just add and remove, right? Or what is other commands? I don't know what that did. Okay, let's not do that. So there's a bunch of ways to do it, right? And they all work. They work pretty well. But I'll tell you another thing, right? So I kind of liked, especially if I know the name of it or something like that, to go to .NET new, no, sorry, .NET add package. Is that how I did it before, right? And like Newtonsoft JSON, right?
Right.
The problem is, let's just say that's what I want to add. The problem is I'm in the folder code demo, right? I can't add that package there, or at least if I do, it's going to do something weird, I think, right? So what I find is that I got to like change all the time. And to me, that's sort of the problem with, I don't want this like escape. Oh, did I lock this thing up? Hang on, I'm trying to like, this thing froze. Terminal, maybe, and close that old one. Okay, so you know what I mean? I have to like CD. Well, I'm only in one project, but I'm sorry. I should have said like I'm used to having multiple projects in my solution, which is a weird word to use in VS Code because we're not using a solution file. But you know what I mean? When you have multiple things, and so like I got a CD into the right directory before I add the package.
Right, and you can do
I
that.
guess
You
same.
can. It's a little obtuse. I don't know if you've done it before, but from the command line with the .NET command line, you can create a solution. You can create a project. You can have the multi-project thing going. You can do it all. It's not one line.
Right. But well, hang on. So let's do something here for a second. So I'm in code demo. What do I have? You know what I didn't do? See, I didn't create this as a folder inside of here. Right?
That's okay.
Because I wanted to add another project to this
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
thing.
Yeah.
And so what I should have done.
So I've done this before where you create a solution and then you create a folder underneath and you put a project in there. It's more than one. It's more than one .NET command, but it can be done.
Yeah.
You just want to see it go.
But in the meantime, I'm screwed already because code demo is my root, right?
Well,
and I really want this.
What if you did this? Like, do you want the source in like a source folder or something?
It doesn't have to be, but I think I need to do something like, I think underneath here, what if I do something? This is what I would normally do. Code demo dot console, right? Would be the name of my, sort, right? Now, maybe the easiest thing to do is just move a bunch of stuff into that folder.
Yeah.
I think I can just drag all this stuff. Yeah, let's try if I don't screw the heck out of this whole thing. Like, can I multiple select these things? Into here, right? And now I have this code demo console. Okay. I don't think it cares where the folder is, does it? Maybe it's pissed that I have these files open. I'll just close all that stuff for now, right? I made it mad, huh? Let's do a build. It's funny because I did the build and now I don't see that other tab. Remember
Well,
that
so
tab with
your
the check mark?
build, what does your build.json, your task.json say about where to build from? Because I
Maybe
think
there's a path.
I think you've moved it, right? You've said that,
Yeah,
hey,
you're
it's
right. Good call.
in code demo console now.
That, right? That's okay. That worked, right? So cool. Good thinking, right? So, okay, so I got that, right? So now, in Visual Studio, I'd right click the solution and say add new project, but I don't want to do that, right? So I guess what I need to do is do something like .NET new class library. I think I have this right. .n,
Right.
and I'm going to call it code demo dot backend or something like that. Whatever it is, right? This is the other, right? Typical way I would do something. I thought it was called class library. Is it called library? .NET new. Let's do new L list, right? That's what you told me last time. Dash list. I don't know. I never
It's either
understand
dash.
single dash.
Well, I can tell you what that is. So
one's like a shortcut, right?
In the Linux world, the single dash should always precede a one character option, and then double dashes is for multiple characters.
I like that. So this is a different list than we got before, I think. Maybe not. So we got a lot of options in here. Why did I get so many options? .NET new. I really want to see is where's my class library? Class library.
So it looks like it's called class lib.
It's this one here. Yeah, I did class library, I think, didn't I? All right. I was close.
Wouldn't it be nice if they just accepted both?
Right. Or give me some sort of like, we think, did you mean, because it looked close enough. Okay, good. Now I have that, right? And so what I want to do now is add a reference I want console to understand backend, right?
Yeah.
Now I got some mistakes. I should have made this capital here before. And this is one of those things that I got to admit, I want to be able to right click this thing and add a reference, right? Now, I've done it from the command line, but I think there's an extension that does this. But I don't know, right? I don't have it, right? And I thought I remember seeing one, but I think this one is like .NET add reference.
Right? And then you got to give the project path.
But I have to be in the right place. Like right now, I'm in the root folder, and that's not going to help me. So I think I maybe need to go into console. Right?
Yeah, you have to go and then you run it from here. And you say, hey, you got to go back one.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. I think I have to do that.
Right.
Maybe.
And then a backslash. Yep. And then code demo backend. And it'll infer like, well, there's a CS proj file in here, so you must mean this CS proj.
And I don't know that. I've always done it like this.
Yeah, see, I think it'll infer it.
So you don't do this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if you just give the path, it'll at least look in there and say like, it'll be like, well, there's a CS proj. That must be what you mean.
Yeah, let's try that. I love it. Let's try that. I hope that works. Look at that. You were right. That's a good tip. But again, I'm not here to be negative on VS Code because I like it a lot. But I find these things to be like kind of like that. I have to think about that so much.
Well, you want to be able to either right click on like code demo up at the top level there of this editor window.
Right.
You want to be able to do that, or you want to at least be able to say, Control Shift P, can I find a command that does what I want?
Oh, let's do that.
And I don't know that you can. Sometimes you can type C# and see the C# stuff, but I don't know.
Is that what you need to do?
Well, it doesn't always work though, because see, I'm not seeing it. Well, there you go, C#, but it's not what we want. It's not what we want, right? So
yeah. Now, I think.
What about when you did .NET?
What's that?
Go back in there again and do .NET. Oh, actually, do it with I know it's crazy. Do it with the yeah. Yeah, I'm still not seeing what you're looking for.
Right. So now I think there's an extension that does this. I think I remember seeing something in here, like when I was trying to find out, like, if I could find a few extensions, or maybe we need to build them, Chris, right? But if I can find a few extensions that do what I want to do, this isn't what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Let's go to this thing. I feel like I could get there, right? And I think it was like VS Code add project reference. It seems like I'm zoomed in there, doesn't it? I guess not. Let's make that big. See, right click on project, add reference, right? Oh, this is VS Code Solution Explorer extension. Now, I don't have a solution, but I think that this is out there, right? So let's just do VS Code Solution Explorer. Let's just see what we get with this thing. This is Visual Studio Marketplace. So I don't want that.
No, it is, because the Visual Studio Marketplace, this is nice and confusing.
Oh, is it both?
Yes. Isn't that fun?
Well, how do I know that? No, don't need a. Oh, I wouldn't install it from here though, right? I'd have to go to the other.
You don't have to. You're right that you don't have to, but you can go to Visual Studio Code and type VS Code -Solution -Explorer and you're going to find it. Or you could probably even just type Solution Explorer and you'll probably find it. But yeah, there it is right there. Fernando Escolar. Look at that.
So
thank you, sir, for your 4.5-star Solution Explorer. There may be other ones, but.
So this adds a Visual Studio Solution File Explorer. Now, I don't have a solution file in my project, and I might need that to make it work. I don't know. You can load any SLN file, support CS proj, and stuff like that. So this is kind of cool. Here's a little video of it, but that's really small, and I can barely even see that. I'll admit I can't even see that on my window. Let's add this. How you doing on time, Chris? You okay?
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't a couple hours in already.
Yeah, exactly. So do I have to restart? It didn't say you need to restart. I think yeah, you know what it is? I'm blown up so big here. That
it'll be interesting now that you've done that.
Back in again, but
is now if you right here. Oh, look at that solution thing. Okay, right click to create. So again, all right, interesting.
I don't have, but this might be nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm going to call it code demo. Now, wait, am I in the wrong spot? Is it going to? I think you're. Is it going to go by this command, or is it going to go here? Let's find out.
That's a good point. Oh, I
think
it put it in repos there.
It moved it all the way back.
Yeah.
And it closed. Wait, now I'm a little confused here.
Oh, there it is. Look at that.
It is in here.
Yeah.
In my code demo.
So now go back to that Solution Explorer and let's see if you can add projects.
Yeah, I just want to see if anything changed in here. And I don't think it did, but that's okay.
Look at this.
An existing project. Okay.
Yeah, look at this. This is kind of cool.
This is kind of cool. I'm curious to see and one of the reasons I want to be able to do this is because my coworkers might not be using Visual Studio Code, right? And I want them to be able to have, open it in the, you know what I mean? Like I want them to be able to use it where they want to use it, right?
Right.
So now I've got these two things. And what kind of options do I got? Create file, create folder. Now, will this give me, I wonder if this will do something different. I'm kind of curious about something. If I do hello world.cs, will it, no, didn't give me a class file. I was just wondering, a guy can dream, right?
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to build that extension that does that. Um, anyway, so now I got this, and I assume I can add references. Now I can add look at that. Oh, add package. It's just a shortcut to that, I think, to here,
Well,
right?
start typing. See if it searches.
Yeah.
It might not. Yeah.
It
It may not.
says enter to confirm. What if I just do, something like that? Well, yes. Okay, so this is messed. It's not helping me in the fact that I didn't give it a real name, right? But okay, but that's not really what I wanted. Most of all, what I really wanted was I'm just looking. Oh, look, build, clean, pack. Kind of interesting, right? Publish. There's our favorite. Like deploy. Where's deployed? Like deployed straight to Azure. Remove project. Okay, so I can do add reference. And what did it add a reference to? Hold it. Add it to the project. What? I didn't say what I wanted to add a reference to, did I? I'm a little confused about this one. Demo. You know what I'm saying? Did you see what happened there? I said I wanted to add a reference, but it didn't ask me what I wanted to add a reference to. Now, maybe because there's nothing else in here, because these two, maybe it just inferred. Let's take a look. Does this take me to the project file?
No, but if you
Just
right click on the name of the project, I wonder. Yeah. Can you edit from here? Open file. It's like halfway down. It's not.
Yeah, I see that.
So there's the project reference.
So this is code demo backend.
I think
and
you
it
might
added
have
a
done the
reference
project
to-
reference backwards, right? You want the console to refer to the backend, not the backend to refer to the console.
Well, I already had a reference to the other one, and it
Oh,
might
okay.
have got confused by that. But let's just see if I take that out. We're just totally screwing around here. Tiwahoo, by the way, thanks. Yeah, it says, ooh, Solution Explorer for VS Code. That's neat. Yeah, let's just do this. Let's go into here. And here's a project reference. I'm going to remove it, right? So we have no references between this thing, right? We can go over here. We can look in the CS proj here. And we can look in the CS proj here. And there's no project reference here. There's no project reference here, right? So we're back to clean. So if I'm in code demo and I want to add a reference to the backend, right? I can do add reference. Interestingly, it just assumed, and I don't know if that's because there is nothing else. I think I have to add another project into this to find out. Don't you think?
Yeah, maybe just to know if it inferred it. It's like, well, what else could it be?
Yeah, let's find that out. Let's do that. So if I go to console, all right, let's get rid of this. Okay, add another class live, right? Why not? In this case, I'm going to do
it from this new Solution Explorer, though.
Okay, I like it because I think this is the solution. Add new project. Oh, this is cool, right? I'm going to add a class library. Hey, where's Statue? Is Statue still with us? I wonder if he's still tuned in. Uh-oh, what happened? I lost it. Hang on a second. I clicked something else. Add new project. I'm going to add a Class library, we have options to do C# and the name. Okay, so I'm going to call it code demo dot second, right? Doesn't matter what it's called. Enter to confirm. So I just want to see it up here, right? So it's a separate. It didn't nest it by anything weird. It did what I would want it to do, right?
Right.
And now, did I remove that other reference? I want to make sure I remove that other reference. I did. Okay, so now let's go over here and see if it gives me a choice. Like maybe it just assumed reference. Ah, I got to admit,
Yeah,
that's pretty nice.
that is nice.
I only had one, so it just added it, right? I wouldn't mind if it maybe there was something in the text that I didn't notice that it told me what it was doing, but you know what I mean? But it's okay. I only had one and it just did it, right? And now I can choose that and there it goes. That's pretty slick. Um, I think that this could sort of ease my pain a little bit here, right? Oh, hey, let me show you another thing I found, and I'm just kind of jumping out of topic here, but I find that when I have a long list of stuff in this Explorer here, right? That when I'm down a ways, and I know there's this little line here that tells me what's indented and what's not.
Yeah.
I don't find it's like strong enough for me. And so when I have a long list of stuff like that might look like, this, I'm kind of like, wait, where's this file? Like what level of nesting is it at? Right. And I know there's help here. Don't get me wrong, I get it. But what I found out I could do to make it easier for me is to go into preferences and settings, and I don't remember what it's called, but I think it might have been called like that. Workbench tree indent, right? And it's 8 pixels. Now, what's really neat is watch how live this is. If I change this to 80, oh, okay, well, it doesn't like that. But if I change it to 20, it
Look
like
at that.
kind of does it live. And I've actually been using it on stuff like 20. I honestly find that helps me a bit. I don't know how you feel, but I know I'm giving up a little screen real estate, but this makes me happier. You know?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, as it is, I usually blow up everything in Visual Studio anyway. Like I don't keep those default font sizes anymore because they're so small, and I'm not getting
Right.
any younger.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Like maybe that's just one of these old people things. But here's where I'm getting. Like we played around a little bit. We installed this extension, and I'm getting close. Like this made me happy, right? Like I can use VS Code, sort of like more now. Like I feel like there's a lot, and I got my solution file, which means that when my coworkers want to open this thing up in Visual Studio, it's just going to work. And I think Visual Studio might do it automatically for you. Do you know what happens if you add like a project that doesn't have a solution file? If you load the folder, will it like offer to generate a solution file or something like that? Do you know?
I don't know if it does anymore because it used to do it automatically. But
Right.
I thought with .NET Core they were trying to also be like very folder. They wanted to be safe for people who did the .NET new thing, and they didn't want them to feel like, well, if you open it in Visual Studio, we're going to add a bunch of stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe Visual Studio doesn't care if you don't have a solution file, though. It still works.
I think that's true, that it still works. Yes.
So maybe we need an extension that isn't a solution explorer, but allows you to, but it's the project explorer, so to speak. In other words, it doesn't care if you have a solution file, it will still let you add references from one thing to the next. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you don't need a solution file to add a reference, right? We needed a solution file to get into this UI here.
Yeah,
and
the solution
give me,
explorer was giving you these features, whereas what you're saying is why can't I just, if I'm in C sharp, why and I get a C sharp project in the file explorer, why can't I just add a reference, right? Like,
yeah,
figure it out.
yeah, yeah. And listen, I think it can be done because there's all the other thing. I think you can affect this menu in an extension, but I haven't tried, and it might be fun to, might be,
Well, extensions would be fun to try out, right?
Tiwahoo likes my tip about the indenting. So I'm glad I got one for Tiwahoo that Tiwahoo liked. I think Tiwahoo threw a few things our way. Um, Tiwahoo says my icon for files are different. You know what?
Yeah.
Is there a better version than this? I'm
I think
curious
it's
to know if
VS
you'd like.
Code. VS Code icons, if I recall correctly,
I think
is
so
one
too.
of. I don't know that it's the only one, but I think it's one of the very popular.
VS Code icons. So which is going to
Yeah.
be better? The cool thing is I can disable it pretty easily, right? I'll
Right.
try it. What the heck, right? How quick is it going to change? And we won't even notice that it changed it. Let's be ready.
So you got to change the theme. So
no, it changed them already. Look at this.
Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah.
Look at that bin folder is pretty. Oh no, that changed. It was a different icon until I clicked it. Did you notice that? Why was it a different icon until I clicked it? Yeah, this is cool. I think, and there's different themes. Select file icon theme. Set file. Well, there's only one. I guess you'd have to load another one, right? If you had a different theme. I mean, I love that there's just so much stuff going on here.
Yeah.
I like this.
After a while, it's it's becoming an IDE, right?
Yeah, it added icons for folders. So I didn't have folders before. Let's watch this. Let's disable it.
Oh, it says you have to reload in order to.
That's interesting. For disable, you have to reload. Give this a try here. Interestingly, there it is. Yeah. Right. So we didn't have folder icons before.
Right.
And maybe that's what was bothering me about the indenting. Like, maybe it was part of that a little bit, right? But, the whole look. But I like it better with the, I'm going to go back to that. That's pretty good.
Cool. So you found a couple new extensions tonight. The Solution Explorer, the icons.
Yeah, now the one I was going to talk about, honestly, and I have it disabled right now, but what I really wanted to talk about in terms of like making VS Code better, and maybe we just need to turn it into a different show, is something called Roslinator.
Oh gosh, yeah, we never got to this.
Which is a collection of 500 plus analyzers, refactors, and fixings for C# powered by Roslin, right? And there's just all kinds of stuff in here. And it works in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. And I have it disabled right now because I wanted to not have it working, kind of on purpose, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at these like analyzers, and we can kind of wrap it up here, right? But you look at these analyzers some of the stuff is in there already, like that it was already doing for us. But remove unnecessary blank lines, remove empty statements, remove, all kinds of stuff. I'm just scrolling, right? Use negative, all kinds of stuff. Remove empty region. Like these are all, and these are just suggested, and these are an analyzer. So it's looking at your code and suggesting things for you to do. That's what analyzers do, right? They make suggestions. we should simplify the code branching or whatever. Okay. Sometimes an analyzer has a refactoring that goes with it, I guess, right? And so if I go back to, I think I went back one level too high, but let's go back to, how did I get here? Oh, I know what it was. I clicked on the, I forgot how I got here. I actually clicked on this. That's why I couldn't go back. And then there's a whole bunch of refactorings in here. And one second, I'm just looking for something here because I lost a window. That's odd. I lost my window with the show running on it. I must have closed it. I had a tab. I don't remember closing it. Hang on a sec. Just want to make sure I'm not throwing something up on my computer here.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. No, it was this one. Okay, that's it. Okay. It was in here. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so in here, these are refactorings, right? Add a using, add braces, all kinds of stuff. I mean, those are simple ones. Convert switch to if. Okay. I bet you got another one that says convert if to switch. There it is, right? Okay.
Yep.
Let me click these things. Look, it shows you the before and the after, all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do in here. And I mean, it said over 500 of these things. Like there's a lot of stuff that I think really makes the refactoring experience in here, much better, I think. Although I think there was a lot of good stuff, even by default, we saw like a lot of good stuff out of the box. But I think it gives you even more. I could be wrong. This says remove blank line, and I thought that was a Roslinator thing, and I disabled Roslinator. But I wonder if they moved, maybe Roslinator got like moved in here by default. I don't understand that exactly. You know what I mean?
I mean, it could just be that refactoring is added now.
Yeah, like maybe they embraced a lot of this stuff. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'd like to find one that they don't have, just so I can prove that it's working when I install the extension. So I'll find something and test it. But anyway, I'm pretty happy, especially now with this solution window. This ability to do adding references and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty helpful. Like that was really a step in the right direction for me.
Yep.
But I think a lot of people don't realize that, just like this thing, like I'm hovering over a repository, and it's telling me private member repository can be removed. Like it's giving me that help. Like now in this case, it doesn't give me a way to actually do that, right? Let me just see something. So it says no quick fix available. So sometimes there's a quick fix, sometimes there's not. But at least it's giving me this indication that it's something that we want to we might want to deal with, right? And these kind of things, we talked about all these little help tips before. So I like it.
Right.
Yeah. I like Visual Studio Code. I think if I can get some of the sort of muscle memory in there, I think the experience will be pretty good, and maybe it will become my full time. What would be a good show, Chris, as a follow up to this? As there's always different follow ups, but what can't I do here?
Yeah.
Right. I know things like performance profiling, things that are in like the enterprise Visual Studio. Like what stuff don't I have that Visual Studio adds that I'm forgetting about? I don't know.
Yeah. And just think, we thought we were going to have to also switch over to Writer for a bit.
We talked about, as an interesting like follow-up, right? Like, well, we're moving away from Visual Studio, not because we don't like it or anything. We're just trying different things. How great is VS Code? Well, we love it, right? And there's Rider, right?
Yeah.
Chris Rider
Yeah.
is the JetBrains offering.
Right.
I think it's getting pretty popular. It's supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I've never used it because I never really had a need to. And I know some people love it. I never tried it.
Right. But
So,
certainly would be interesting to take a look at. And then, I don't know. I think one of the problems that both of these have sometimes, maybe not all the time, is that I think that Rider is still getting support for some new C# offerings. Maybe that's not true. Maybe there just needs to be an update that I have to go get. But top level statements shows up with errors. It works. You compile and run, and you can even step through, but it's the editor time where it's like, I don't know what this is, right? So,
right. Well, I'm sure they'll fix that too, right?
yeah,
Like, we're not
sure.
bad mouthing them, right?
No,
but
I think it's the
yeah,
difficulty of kind of like, they have to catch up from what comes out in preview. There's no, well, this is being worked on internally, so.
Right, exactly. I'm sure there's some of that stuff, but I've heard really good things, and I think
I'd like to check it out.
you and I we're curious people. Like, well, let's see what it does. Like, who knows? Like we've talked about doing a show on different language, and I'm like, I don't need to do a different language. I like C#, but I'd love to do a show about it. See things that are different and enlighten myself to the way of other things work, right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, because I think sometimes you see how something works in another language, and then you realize that, hey, maybe I like this technique. I might do something similar or lean in that direction, even in the language that I use day to day. I know I've certainly done that. I don't know. Like, I tend to, well, I don't want to overstate it, but I'm not afraid of writing, of like, having a method that takes a func or takes an action, essentially takes a lambda. But I'm less afraid of that than I don't want to say I was afraid of it before, but I never would have thought of it. I would have always thought of like, well, you pass parameters, you pass data to a C# method, and then you see there's so much power in passing an action or a func. In fact, you see examples of it in the startup CS where in order to change the default options, you don't just change the options, an options variable or something. You actually pass it a lambda that takes an options and returns an options. And they do that on purpose, because that way you can, if you want to, maybe what you need to pass is dynamically determined, so you can write some code in there. It's really flexible.
Right.
But I never thought of that stuff before until I did a lot more JavaScript and F#. Because in JavaScript, passing functions is natural, like it's second nature. jQuery really gets you used to doing it. Event handling gets you used to doing it. And then I start to think like, wow, I like this technique. I don't overuse it in C#, but I do use it. So, but yeah, definitely, like to Wahoo says, other languages for compare and contrast. We've definitely talked about that a lot here, is where's the appropriate place to start with language? Because a lot of times on this show, like people, if you watch the show a lot, maybe it's not good, maybe it's bad. We don't teach the C# on this show, right? We don't start at the beginning and say, okay, here's day one of C#. We kind of assume viewers know. So would we make those same assumptions with Python, Ruby, Go, F#, Elixir, whatever? Or would we say, maybe what we have is a show that's the introduction, and then we kind of compare and contrast and say, look, here's something you can do in Elixir. Your functions themselves have pattern matching, which in C# we have function overloads, but that's not the same thing as pattern matching in the function. It's something I'm definitely interested. We've talked about it for a while, but I think we've also felt that we'd probably want experts on in the languages. So,
yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
I think that's the way to go too. Hey, listen, also, viewer of the night. I think is the winner of this week's winner of the night, viewer of the night is Tiwahu. And Chris, why don't you tell Tiwahu about the prizes we have for
Oh,
this evening?
wow. I mean, look, first of all, you get a copy of the home game, you know, and then you get a money back guarantee on everything you spent to watch this show. If some of the advice doesn't work out so well, you will get whatever you spent to join us tonight back.
Right.
But you know
and
what?
You know what? We don't normally do this, Chris, but I'm going to throw in the next 4 videos for free.
The next 4 for free, right? Which are always available at our YouTube site, youtube.com/the Dev Talk Show. So if you ever want to catch any of the replays, they're there. But yeah, that was great. Lots of great comments there, and it's always good to see you. And nice to, boy, wouldn't that be something to get to an in-person conference again? How about that? I know.
Oh yeah,
Tech Bash is coming.
Tech Bash
is coming in November, right?
Yeah, what's Tech Bash is I'm blanking out on the day. I'm looking right now. November 8th to 11th. If you're interested in, we'd love to see everybody at Tech Bash in person. Chris, maybe we'll do some shows from there. I don't know. We have to figure out what we're doing from a streaming perspective, but November 8th to 11th, and the sessions and the keynote and the workshops are all being selected right now. We're in the process of doing that, and the team is working hard and figuring things out. I remember hearing that, I'm not spilling any beans, but I remember hearing that the workshops that were selected all sounded really good, and I'm excited about that. And I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great event this year, back at the Kalahari in the Poconos. God, wouldn't that be something? I think it would just, I'll admit it's going to be weird, like being at a conference. It's been a while, but one of my coworkers went off to a conference this week out in like California. I think it was a security thing, but hey, they're back, right? Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, Andy, thank you for running through not just some Visual Studio Code that you did know, but we looked at some ideas that we didn't know for sure how they would work or anything. And they did. A lot of stuff just either it did work, or at least you could kind of see like, hey, we're on the path to this working, and maybe, let us know. I think it'd be great if you get to a point where you really are doing your day-to-day work there. And we talked about some of the reasons why. There's a couple of reasons why. I mean, for one, some of the hassles with getting Visual Studio installed in certain situations. But now, here's something real interesting. If you really get used to using Visual Studio Code, well, what does that mean about you running it on a Linux desktop? And maybe, I don't know if today you ship your app on Linux servers, but it might be step 1 towards heading that way. I don't know. I know that currently, one of the things that I've seen a lot at the workplace is apps that used to run as Windows services now running anywhere. They just I don't want to say just by moving to .NET Core 5, 6. Certainly you had to adopt the rest of the mindset, but seeing them running in Linux container, and that way now you get to start taking advantage. Do you want it in Kubernetes? Do you want it in Azure container instances? Whatever. It's great. So it's cool stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody who joined us live. Once again, we had some great participation in the chat. Thanks Tiwahu, thanks Stashu.net for being here, and especially for the tips and all the tricks and sharing what you learned from us and what we learned from you. And make sure you follow us on Twitter, The Dev Talk Show, and catch us on YouTube. But until then, Andy, thanks again. It's always hard work doing it, so we appreciate it. For Andy Schwamm, I'm Chris Gomez, and we will see you next week on The Dev Talk Show.